Okay, welcome back. Well, you've had a chance to actually go and play around yourself and think about what marketing and strategic might mean. So I'm kind of interested to have a look at what you will have come up with. Probably if we focus in on the word marketing, you might have come up with things like advertising, promotion, persuasion. I hope you mentioned customers, sales, 4 Ps. Some of you might have thought about more in business outcome terms, things like profit or sales, satisfaction or brand position or whatever. And they're all important words, I imagine, or at least most of them. But I hope that among all of the other words you've come up with in terms of really coming to grips with what you think marketing is, that you've got some words in there like consumers or clients. Because remember where we started with Drucker, that the purpose, and in fact the only purpose of a business is to create customers. Now these days we might say, well, it's to create and keep them, and that's a thought that we'll develop later. But this idea of customers, consumers, again, is absolutely central. So your definition of marketing, whatever it might include for you in terms of your mental model as we start to work on developing that, I want to see these words customers, clients, consumers somehow included in that model. I hope that you might have mentioned something like customer needs. And in particular, we need to think about providing rich and deep insights into customers. Now, there's some good tools around these days, and we'll be looking at, again, at one of these later in the course, the idea of video ethnography. It kind of sounds weird, but you follow customers around or you hang cameras in strange places and you kind of just look at how people think about, use, and interact with products and services. It does sound a bit weird, as I say, but it can provide some really interesting and sometimes quite amusing insights into the way that customers think about and give expression to their needs. I hope that some of you might have put that word satisfaction in. In earlier years, this was a little bit overlooked, but marketing endeavour is not just about leading to the sale. It's this idea of subsequent to the sale, this idea of satisfaction, what actually happens, what actually is in the minds of customers after they've bought something. Is that a good experience or a great experience? That helps us to really get a sense of how strong our position might be in the market. Well, if we move to kind of a more formal definition and look at the American Marketing Association definition of marketing, they say that marketing is the activity, set of institutions and processes for creating, communicating, delivering and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners and society at large. It's a bit of a mouthful, so read it through a couple of times just on the slide there. And among other things, I want to draw your attention to 2 or 3 key words. What are the keywords of interest that really come to grips with what this idea of marketing is about. Again, we've got customers and clients, that's good. We've got this idea of value that I'm trying to emphasise, but we've also got this word processes, this idea that marketing is not a static thing, it's dynamic, it's constantly thinking about things that are changing out there, and our response to that in terms of these value and customer focus ideas. Okay, let's move to strategic. Again, I'm kind of interested as to what you would have come up with here. You might have come up with words like intentional, military maybe, because certainly strategy is a word that's used a lot in a military context. Maybe notions of longer term, fundamental, plan, whatever. But again, the point here I think is that ideally in our understanding of strategic, we want to capture the sense of high-level thinking and vision about what could become. Not just what's out there, but can we look a little over the horizon and get a sense of what might be possible? And even better, from our own organisation's point of view, can we be the one that creates these possibilities, these new ideas, these moving the market forward in ways that weren't necessarily obvious at the outset, but become obvious when it actually happens. Again, if we pick a slightly more formal definition for a moment, one definition that one author's come up with is this idea of strategy being the harnessing of a firm or organisation's capabilities and resources through high-level, perceptive and visionary thinking and planning to ensure the long-run achievement of its fundamental aspirations and objectives. Now again, it seems a bit of a mouthful, But again, just pick out the key words and it'll give you some insight into what's important. I like this idea of vision. Strategic is not just the detail of running a business. It is something kind of a little bit looking into the future, getting a sense of where we are now and what we could become. And then, of course, the rest of the course is focused on the ways that we actually achieve that. Let's take an example that might make this a little clearer. A firm like Air New Zealand. And in fact, if you go to their website, under the About Us menu, you'll find some things that talk a little bit about Air New Zealand, what they're about, and how they see themselves and so on. But they've got a very nice statement there that, where they say that the aspiration and goal of Air New Zealand is to be number one in every market they serve. So that's pretty ambitious, but it's a great aspiration to have. We don't want to be number 2 or number 6, we want to be number 1. Okay, they talk about this idea of commitment to customers in a distinctively New Zealand way. So they've got this idea of positioning. They're not just wanting to be committed to customers in any old context, but picking up some of the distinctive characteristics and attributes of New Zealand as a country and kind of linking that in with the way that they're seen out there in those markets. And then also they talk about the distinctive competencies and capabilities that they have. They might not use those words, but they're words we're going to be used. What competencies do you need to achieve the vision that you've set yourself? And so, for example, they talk about harnessing technology to improve consistency and speed of service. Air New Zealand really has been a front runner in the terms of making good use of technology with their check-in kiosks, for instance, the way that they schedule airlines and the yield model for their pricing. A whole lot of factors are really based on good, sound use of technology. Industry leading in flight services, such as, for instance, the introduction of flatbeds in economy for long-haul travel. As far as I know, they're the first in the world to have done that. And that's quite a breakthrough in terms of improving the customer experience for those long journeys, say between here in the US or here in Europe. Of course, a modern aircraft fleet almost goes without saying, but important in terms of their positioning and providing quality service. And also, really a very good revenue maximisation model, as I mentioned, that provides service at multiple price points. So the business traveller is looking for certain things, we price according to that. The leisure or travel or tourist person is looking for different price points, different value equations, so they've priced to be able to take that. Notice also the reference to harnessing the creativity and innovation of staff in achieving their goals. And that's a really important point, and I think a great credit to Air New Zealand, because they realise it's not just about strategy, not just about good ideas and great innovation and technology and so on. They've actually involved their staff, and that's something we'll look at again later in the course. But they really have captured well, I think, this idea of creativity and commitment on the part of staff to achieve what they want to achieve. Okay, I want at this point to just draw a distinction between strategic and tactical considerations. It's an important difference. Sometimes there's a kind of a grey area in the middle, but I wouldn't agonise over that, kind of just go with the flow. But it's important to at least get in your mind that there is a distinction between strategic and tactical considerations. If we think about the strategy, just to restate that definition we had before, it's the harnessing of a firm or organisation's capabilities and resources through high level, note that emphasis on high level perceptive and visionary thinking and planning, to ensure the long run achievement of its fundamental aspirations and objectives. So again, this idea of long run. Now it's not on the never never, but this idea of a 3 to 5 year window has somewhat different implications from, say, a 1 to 2 year window. If we think about tactics at kind of the other end of the continuum, well, there's a variety of definitions, but I think of it about as kind of sort of manoeuvres or practices, but they're engaged to achieve a more immediate end. So we see something happen in the market, we do something to strengthen our position or to maybe preempt or blunt what a competitor is up to. It's sharp, it's hopefully going to have an impact straight away, it's important to do, but it is by and large tactical. And as I said, that the kind of middle area can be a bit blurred, but I wouldn't worry too much about that. It's just getting this emphasis, longer run, more important, strategic versus short term, immediate objective, tactical outcomes. Contrast between those two is a good distinction to have in your mind. Again, maybe a couple of examples are the best way to think about this. A firm that I worked with a number of years back was Colgate-Palmolive in New Zealand. So for the first example, imagine we had a competitor, say, I don't know, GlaxoSmithKline. They've got a brand of toothpaste called Maclean's. And let's sort of imagine that Maclean's has gone out there with a 2-for-1 offer into the market. So what that means is that if you're a retailer, you buy 1 dozen of Maclean's, then you get essentially the second dozen for free. Well, that's a great incentive for not only the retailers actually, but also for the consumers. So the decision becomes, what should Colgate's do? So they would in that case probably employ a tactical response. They might do something, they might have a special themselves, they might do something to encourage the sales force to particularly concentrate on the presentation of their toothpaste in the store, or hire extra merchandisers to get more shelf space, those types of things. But you're taking an immediate decision to try and minimise the impact of the Maclean's 2-for-1 offer. Let's now take a second example of Colgate's, where they might come up with this idea of having small, say 40-gram sample tubes of their fluoride toothpaste. And the idea would be that you would distribute these small 40-gram tubes, say, to intermediate schools around New Zealand. Now clearly that's expensive. You're not going to do it overnight. It's going to require quite a lot of liaison and coordination with intermediate schools and that type of thing. But if you just think about it for a moment, hopefully you'll see that that's a strategic decision rather than a tactical one. Takes longer to do, it's more expensive, but clearly the objective is clear. You want to encourage children at a relatively young age to experience that brand firsthand. Their parents will see them using it, and hopefully the idea is to create brand awareness and then maybe some loyalty early in life, that if it works, will then keep them as relatively loyal customers for many years to come. So it has strategic, longer run implications. So we would see that as a strategic marketing decision rather than a tactical one.